welcome to a new Energy Crew podcast. Me, your host, JP Warren, and I want to welcome everyone out there to the new Energy Crew, to the Energy Crew podcast. It is November 25th. It is the Saturday following Thanksgiving, and I decided I've been taking this break to really kind of do some self-reflection and some focus on to plan some stuff out before launching into 2024. I am coming on the tail end of my getting my coaching certificate, which I will be diving into the focus of imposter syndrome. And I kind of feel like, look, this is kind of something that it's a subject where I think it's very near and dear to my heart. It's something that I kind of deal with I feel like a daily basis. Some days I have better days, and some days I feel like it's a losing battle. But as I guess continue and start to explore this side of whether it's a business, whether it's the imposter syndrome, coaching aspect, I think it's kind of important for me to kind of start putting content out there that I find is interesting, whether it's stuff that relates to imposter syndrome, personal development, professional. When I say personal development, that kind of ties into professional development too, because I think that's kind of hand in hand, whether it's entrepreneurial mindsets, starting a business, running a business, as well as bringing on having, or continued, showcase of having guests on or industry leaders on and kind of having characters on the show to kind of talk to them about what kind of motivates them. I do kind of want to dive into, the personal side of my personal side, stuff that I'm finding that's on my radar that I'm leaning into. And right now, kind of imposter syndrome is one of them. Again, I think it's important. Again, I was talking to my wife before even doing this episode. I said, look, I am extremely uncomfortable being the only person on a podcast, especially Energy Crew podcast. Now, is that because some of it is maybe lies into the imposter syndrome aspect where I believe that nobody really I have nothing really valuable to share, and no one's really going to listen to this, or if people are listening to this, or be shaking their head and talking shit. But what? At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. I'm uncomfortable doing this, and I always tell my daughter that's important to continue to be uncomfortable. That's where we grow, and that's kind of and again, this is part of my journey. This is part of my journey to share kind of what's kind of behind the curtain and kind of what's been going on in my mind, and really kind of when imposter syndrome started kind of taking center stage and started kind of driving my anxiety and kind of rather being a passenger, kind of taking the wheel. And I just feel like if I'm going to go into helping others when it comes to their imposter syndrome, which is something that I think that a lot of people face, I need to kind of share my story with it as well. And again, this is maybe the first story I tell about imposter syndrome. There may be some things that I feel like I need to dive into a little bit more through other discussions or through other coaching methods. But I guess let's start with people out there. I put a poll out there on LinkedIn not that long ago, and I said, who out there deals with imposter syndrome? In the 1980s, they did a study where 70% of people dealt with faced imposter syndrome. And I was kind of curious. That was the 80s. You take along social media, the comparison culture we have now, the rat race that only seems to be kind of the hustle culture, the rat race that only seems to be kind of evolving and maturing. I'm curious if those numbers would be higher. So I put something out there. Yes, I feel it on a daily basis was the option. Yes, occasionally. No, never. And then what is imposter syndrome? So I think, there was a couple of people that, didn't know what imposter syndrome was. And I think it's important to kind of share. Let's start off there before I kind of dive into this. Again, this is me just I have some notes written down, and I have some flow and structure towards this. But again, it's just me kind of sharing where I'm coming from and why this is so important for me, and why I'm taking this as as a practice when I do get certified in coaching, which should be in a week and a half. Super excited about that. So what is imposter syndrome? Imposter syndrome is a psychological pattern where individuals doubt their accomplishments and fear being exposed as a fraud, despite evidence of their competence and success. It's characterized by chronic self-doubt and feelings of intellectual fraudulence. Okay, so I guess it's just feeling like you're a fraud, feeling like you're not where you're at because of your achievements and successes. It's feeling where you're at because it's a lot of luck. It's a lot of circumstantial luck. And you hope no one actually comes down the hall and realizes that you're a fraud. So again, it's a feeling that, I mean, just to be kind of clear, it's an experience. It's not something it's not a diagnosed symptom. It's an experience that a lot of people face. And some interesting facts about it. I just said that 70% of people feel it. And as though it affects a lot of people, research suggests that women may experience it more frequently than men do. This could be influenced by societal and professional dynamics. It's particularly prevalent among high achievers, and I never thought I was a high achiever until I kind of started these businesses behind me. And I think that's kind of why it's kind of grown and evolved and mutated and kind of taken over the driver's seat in my mind, and why I've kind of developed a way that I feel that if I constantly practice and repeat it, it definitely helps squash the imposter syndrome that's going on in my mind. All right. It's across various professions, healthcare, doctors, lawyers, professionals, executives. I'm sure they people deal with it. And also, I kind of want to share with you that people are sitting out there, talking about imposter syndrome. I remember I had a meeting with a couple of leaders, executives, not that long ago, and I'm up there talking, and I kind of propose a subject. Hey, look, my name is JP Warren, blah, blah, blah. Here's my strengths. And here's kind of my blind spots. Here's my weaknesses. And I kind of listened to imposter syndrome. It was and after that, it was such a kind of a cool experience. I mean, you had so many different people kind of open up and share their feelings with self-doubt, their feelings of not being adequate enough in their role. And they're finding successful companies, way more successful than any of my companies. At least that's what I feel like. And much more long-term. So to hear kind of people that I would never assume have it is it's motivating. It's inspiring. It's saying that I'm not alone. And I think dealing with this and other situations in life, it's okay to kind of say, hey, look, I'm dealing with this. I'm not alone. So Maya Angelou, Albert Einstein, who else? Michelle Obama, Tom Hanks, Sheryl Sandberg. And I'm like, oh, Sheryl Sandberg. I love Sheryl. Well, I had to Google who that is. That's the COO of Facebook and author of Lean In. Emma Watson, Lady Gaga. Anyway, these are all people that have experienced and that have dealt with imposter syndrome. So again, diving into this a little bit, I'm going to kind of talk about this and why it's so relevant to me and why I am kind of so in coaching. They tell you, one of the things they say, hey, look, if you are going to start practicing kind of whatever you're going to dive into, whatever segment, you're going to dive into and kind of help, whether it's, people trying to start their careers or getting out of school, whatever niche you're getting into, like you want to have some sort of experience with it or some sort of connection to it. And I was thinking about it. I started thinking, what if I do an entrepreneurial, people that want to start their own businesses and all that stuff. However, my wife kind of mentioned to me, she's like, I really think you kind of need to start documenting your struggles with imposter syndrome, not just your struggles, kind of your successes too. And this way, when you do kind of evolve, like think about how you can help others. And I thought that was kind of just a great realization. And I'm just fortunate to have her kind of just constantly hold a mirror up to me and kind of showcase every imperfection I have, which is a lot. But no, she kind of talked about this and being around people and discussing, kind of what I'm faced with and kind of, figuring out how do I navigate having this sometimes constant feeling of feeling a fraud, a phony, not feeling like I've achieved much. And also whenever I do achieve the feeling of success isn't a feeling of good. It's not, look good. I am Groot. No, it's a feeling of, it doesn't leave me with what success or achievement should feel like. It constantly has a feeling of anxiety. What do I have to do next? So anyway, so that was the connection towards imposter syndrome. I just think it's such a cool thing to dive into and share kind of what I've gone through and the stuff that I've kind of set up for myself, and hopefully it helps others out there. So I remember, in the earlier in my career, I don't think imposter syndrome was around much because I think I was focused on other stuff in the beginning of my career. Like, I remember, when I first got my job, I would just, oh yeah, that sounds good. Here's the salary, here's the role. Perfect. I'm in. Even if I got, I got my master's, I went to a great school, did good, great. I would accept whatever was given to me. I was very risk adverse. Sales, I mean, the only time that I felt like I was adequately compensated is when I had to move to a different country, a foreign country, Saudi Arabia. But again, that was sacrificed to again elevate me when it comes to the financial side of things. I was fine with it. I was okay with it. Imposter syndrome really wasn't a big thing. However, I would say that the overall theme maybe of the first 10, 12, 13 years of my career, 14 years of my career, is probably and I wouldn't, and this may be imposter syndrome a little bit. It's probably limiting beliefs. I never believed that I would be as successful as this person, or I would, people that were in my age, um, same industry, same experience, whatever, were doing way far better than me. What it looked like on the surface, obviously, I'm just talking surface here, than I was. But again, my limiting beliefs were, hey, you're lucky to be where you're at. You got to where you're at. Don't ask for more. Don't stand out, do your job and whatever. So again, I think the limiting beliefs was kind of the main thing. And again, that's coming into an industry that rewarded loyalty. My first company I started at, they named rigs after people that stayed there for a certain period of time. So to me, being loyal and kind of doing what you had to get done, being a soldier, obviously not a soldier, but picking up and moving when you had to, and missing holidays and all that is part of the job. So anyway, limiting beliefs. Now, I guess this kind of gets interesting, kind of starts kind of spinning and growing, and when my imposter syndrome really started kind of becoming me, was probably when I started the company, my company. I was 41 years old, and never before have I stepped out on my own before. I was in sales, I was in operations, I was whatever. But I would, in sales, I would take a a base salary only. I never had a commission role in sales. Again, that was, I'm sure that was a risk factor. I think there was a little bit of imposter syndrome potentially. I didn't want to bet on myself about that. But once I was about 41 years old and I started this company, that's kind of when I think I really gave the keys over to the imposter syndrome. And again, not for a bad reason. It really kind of motivated me. Hey, what you're doing right now, it started off with, oh shit, I got to survive. I had, less than a month's burn rate in the bank account. It was, I need to generate some sort of revenue. Otherwise, I'm going to have to go. And look, again, the what if scenario, what if I didn't generate? At the end of the day, I'd go get a job. However, I believed in myself here. I wanted to prove something. So starting off, it was obviously high stress. Again, that comes with the territory. But what started happening was when I transitioned from the W-2 type of employment to the entrepreneurial employment, where I'm still kind of getting adjusted. It's been over 2 years. I'm still trying to figure it out, which is kind of now it's more fun and enjoyable, and it still is met with some of the historic feelings that I had when I first started, which is survival, which is a big what if. Hey, what if it doesn't work out? Big oh shit moments that always pop up. And also you're not good enough. So starting this, it was like, oh, I just wish I had, if I had this, it became like these little goals. If only this happened, then I'd be, if only I had this, then I wouldn't be so stressed out. If I had this, once I get to this, then I won't. But again, that turned into destination anxiety. That turned into me always wishing for something to happen. Then I could be calm and collected and present with my family. However, that wasn't nearly true at all. So as I kind of started kind of like, oh, once this happens, then this. Once I started having this destination anxiety, I said, okay, well, I'm going to put this down. I'm going to make a vision board. Before I had no goals, no this, no that. So I started kind of making little goals and also big goals too. I want to be recognized by, my industry. I want to be taken kind of serious. What I'm doing, I want to be taken serious. Yeah, there's this, this networking dinner side of things, but it's actually serious business. So I kind of listed things. What would fulfill me? What would make me satisfied? And I listed, several things. I want to be, speaking at industry events. I want to be invited to speak. I want to be featured in a magazine. How cool would that be if I got featured in a magazine? Like if that doesn't speak, industry, recognition, nothing does. Well, anyway, flash forward several months, years, whatever that it is. And I look back and I was speaking at industry, I was asked to speak to like 2 or 3 different industry events. I was again, reflecting back again. This is gonna be kind of all over the board. Just bear with me here. I've been, since I put that goal down. And again, this isn't like a boohoo. Like I've achieved that. I was in 4 different magazines. I was in Oil Men's Magazine, Oil Women's Magazine, Canvas Rebel, and also recognizing who's who of America. But whatever. So anyway, I was reaching all these goals and I was succeeding in everything that I kind of put down, all these goals that I put down, all these destinations that I wanted. I was hitting these marks. I was not feeling any sense of achievement, any sense of success, any sense of pride in any of this. If anything, I wouldn't even stop to recognize or to celebrate the success. I would say, yeah, I would identify it. Hey, yeah, I did that. That's good. But that's yesterday's news. I gotta keep moving forward. And that sucks. I mean, thinking about that sucks. The feeling that I put my goals down and I achieved these goals that I set out, and I can't have any ounce of pride, pleasure, feeling good about myself sucked. I was waking up constantly every single morning for over a year, really, really early in the morning. And again, it was done by the imposter syndrome. Say, hey, you got to create. You got to be doing more today than you did yesterday. Otherwise, people are going to find out you're a fake. You're a phony. And your house of cards, your delicate house of cards that you create is going to collapse. And this was kind of going on and on. I can identify several key things that started happening to me. Number one, and I'm still kind of affected by this. Number one, I started taking myself way too serious. And to the point where I'm just now, November 25th, 2014, holy shit, 2023, I am just about now getting back to that fun side of things, the creative side of things. I was taking myself so serious. I was thinking, okay, well, if I want to be taken with respect in my industry, I needed to do things that I needed to take myself more serious. I needed to do things that I was never doing previously. Conducting myself in ways I've never done previously. So why would I change my core of who I was? Someone that did have a playful sense of humor, whatever, go with me here. Someone that did have a playful sense of humor, that enjoyed making these sketch comedies about the industry and all that. I was getting really serious about myself, and I could not separate myself from my house. And I was working in my home. And I couldn't separate that. I'd go upstairs and be around my wife and my daughter, and I could not detach from work. That imposter syndrome was saying, what are you doing spending time with your family? You got to get back downstairs and work. You got to start cranking more shit. And again, that, throughout time, that, I went from a daddy who needs coffee. That's like the ongoing joke. It's not a joke. It's serious. I do need coffee. I went from the daddy who needs coffee to grumpy daddy to daddy who's always working. And that kind of hit hard. That's when my daughter, I kind of started hearing that. And part of the whole reason to go into business for yourself is to have that freedom, is to kind of pull back from kind of the 9 to 5 or the 8 to 5, whatever we do, and to kind of break apart and to kind of have that work-life balance. And however, I remember growing up, I'm getting into this later, but part of me growing up, my father was always working. He was always on his computer, whether it was, we were skiing or whether it was throwing the baseball or a baseball game, whatever. He was always working. And that's not something that I want to turn into. That's not something where I wanted to go. So, that kind of hit hard. And that's when it's kind of started really looking into myself, like, what the hell is going on? Like, where did I suddenly lose myself? Where it's like I was so easygoing, carefree. Hey, everything will take care of itself. To I got to control everything. I need to have my hand on everything, kind of control everything around me, because that's the only way that we're going to be successful. Sorry for all the breaks in the water. Haven't had a podcast in a while, so I'm enjoying this actually. So I began to pour myself into work. Imposter syndrome. You're not going to be successful until you succeed. And what does success look like for me? It was building this. I started getting so not focused. I was coming up with ideas. I was not finding my stride. I was getting so spread thin. I was pouring myself into so many different cups. I wasn't having anything left for my family, myself, my friends. And I'm still learning kind of how to kind of reset in myself. Um, and a lot of it, so I can remember, I'm kind of got to kind of, without going through the notes too much, because, I don't want to keep on just rambling. But I guess I kind of found myself, there's a couple of stories in here that I kind of found myself where it was like, I have a problem. Like I need to figure something out for myself. I need to figure out systems or something for myself. I need to get my imposter syndrome down, because number one, didn't matter what was successful. Didn't matter if crew club was successful. Didn't matter if the events were great. The kids crew was great. I could not feel achievement. I remember one of the stories is it was last January, and I wrote a children's book, Energy for Everyone. And I wrote this book, and obviously, people, like, Kyle Wagner, Tyler Thomason, Nancy Zucker, she, all these people created these wonderful, wonderful kids' books that was inspirational. So I put a book down, and I kind of put it out, published it, and all that. And it was a hit. When I say it was a hit, that means it got a lot of great feedback, a lot of great support. And I remember walking around. It was AED Casino night in Houston. My wife and I were walking around, and this is last year, and I was right smack in the middle of, imposter syndrome, the boat, not be able to identify this, me achieving these goals that I've written down and not be able to feel any sort of, and honestly, so anyway, so I remember going around, people like, oh, JP, that's, they were, singing praises, like, hey, look, great book, great book. Nothing. It was, and I hate being this way. Like, I again, like, I'm not taking away people that were, being very, kind, complimentary, and I personally cannot feel anything. I cannot feel pride. I cannot feel success. I couldn't feel like I did anything. Like, all this, like, good job, JP, just kind of fell into fear. I started thinking like, well, shit, I have 2 more books I better be out, so they know I'm not a fraud. Like, I was thinking like, what else I have to do versus just kind of sit in the moment and just kind of like say thank you. I could just say thank you, but I couldn't allow myself to do that. Again, I just talked about, I spoke about, whether it's, being asked to speak, even when I remember I was talking, I remember I was asked to speak at the Oklahoma Pipeliners. I'm looking at the plaque right there. And I was asked to speak on industry advocacy and all that stuff. And I was talking to my wife before. I was like, babe, what am I doing up here? Like, I'm not midstream. I'm not like, what am I doing up here? And she's like, babe, the only person you have to impress is that one person that invited you to speak up here. And that's it. I was like, what do you mean? She goes, well, someone believed in you enough to invite you here to speak. And that's kind of the only cat that in the audience you really need to impress. And I kind of liked hearing that. And it was like, but I remember, like, even after the magazines, which are such a cool thing, I'm still kind of like, again, I'm still trying to process achieving goals. How about that? I'm still trying to pause and celebrate the successes, which is something I always tell people constantly to do. And it's an active process for me to retrain my brain to celebrate it, to feel good about it. I mean, even after all that, it was still like just a feeling of lack. It was a feeling, not like abundance and all that stuff. It was a feeling of like, okay, I put this out there, I achieved it, and I couldn't connect with the feeling of feeling good with it. It was the imposter syndrome telling me, number one, you don't deserve that connection. Number two, you better keep thinking what's down the road, because if not, your house of cards is going to fall. Everyone's going to discover you're fake. Keep going. Keep making things perfect. And I feel like I'm a perfectionist. And that actually is one of the traits of imposter syndrome. So, what else? Okay. I remember, and this was, going back to my daughter, I remember this was, we had so my daughter has 2 homes. She spends half the time with me and her bonus mother, my wife, Monica. The other half she spends at other. And I remember it was one of those times that she was about to go back to the other home for like, a week. And I had, 8 hours with her. And my imposter syndrome, for some reason, was like, hey, JP, it'd be a good idea right now. Rather than you spend time with your daughter, why don't you create some content, bro? Dude, I created content for probably 5 hours. Content that I never used. Content that I thought was important at the time. But if I paused and gave myself 30 seconds, I'd be like, are you ever going to use this? And I've done that numerous times. I have sacrificed time with my family, my wife, my daughter, to create bullshit that I'm never going to use. But why? Why, if there's any free time, I need to fill that void with creating something for work. Whether I'm a user or not, I have to be behind the computer. And who does that sound like? It sounds like my dad, always working. So during this break, I'm going to talk about this last imposter syndrome, but then I'm going to talk about during this break about like the feeling of like not working. So the last thing, my wife and I, we just moved in this home renting. Yes, 43 renting, it's okay. You're not alone out there. But no, we just moved. We're in this new beautiful neighborhood, and neighborhoods are great. We never had a backyard. I've never had a backyard before. Since I've been like an adult in the last decade, and it's a gorgeous home, just gorgeous. It feels good being here. And I'm still battling this. I am having imposter syndrome about where I live, about me. Is this a reality? Like, you don't deserve this. You don't deserve to be out here. I'm constantly battling, even when I go on my walks out here. And so anyway, so this imposter syndrome to me, it's such a fascinating beast, because when you think you got to dial down to something else pops up, and it doesn't matter how much I create, how much I think I've tamed the imposter syndrome, it's still there. And it's kind of exciting talking about it. It's kind of exciting sharing it, because the more I share with it, the more I understand that other people are feeling with this, and they kind of want to say, hey, look, I'm going through the same thing. Hey, deal with it. Regardless, I dig the support because other people are experiencing it too. But anyway, that just goes to show that it doesn't matter what is in front of me. There's going to be some sort of imposter syndrome that pings me, that says, don't celebrate this. You shouldn't enjoy this. Any achievement that you do have, you don't deserve, or if you do deserve, better watch out. Don't hold on to it. And again, it's an interesting feeling. And I remember, I was talking to one of my buddies whose company just sold. I was like, how do you feel that after you sold your company? He's like, oh, it feels good. I go, no. How does it feel right now? I was like, well, I had to feel after. He said, well, it felt good for about, 10, 15 seconds or minutes, whatever. And he's like, after that, we kind of had to align and kind of, I didn't feel good. It was what are we doing next? How do we kind of keep this momentum going? So anyway, and look, I think the coolest part about imposter syndrome, I always ask my wife, where do you think this come from? My wife, she's a queen of childhood. So, thinking back, yeah, like, again, not knocking, my upbringing or my family or my parents or anything like that, because I know they love me and they did the best they could. But I remember my dad, was a hard worker. He always worked hard, and that was kind of passed down to me. And I feel like, and again, it's my feeling, I guarantee they'll be like, oh, that never happened. But my feeling is that every time I did have a success, every time I did, whether it's a grade, whether it's getting into school, whether it's a project I did, it was met with some sort of level of achievement. Like, hey, that's good, but you got to worry about this. Or, hey, that's good, but you got to worry about that. And I think that was kind of instilled in me growing up. Like, I'm a middle child. I don't think that's it, but it's like whatever accomplishment I had, it was always, hey, that's great, but. And I try to look at my daughter now and think anything she does, I'm like, obviously I try to, like, just kind of build her up, and kind of like, it's obvious. I think I'm probably going to I'm passing some stuff besides my humor off to her, but I think it's again, it's nothing against them, but that's kind of what I felt. I remember sitting there, it wasn't that long ago, across the table, my family and my wife's there and all that stuff. And I was like, hey, Dad, you ever hear about this magazine? He was like, oh yeah, I heard about that. I'm like, well, guess what? I'm in the magazine. He goes, oh, well, that's great, but they just want to sell you subscriptions. I remember hearing that. I was like, that's it. And I loved how he said that, because that identified for me what I received my whole life. But anyway, it's up to me from now on to look at success, look at achievements, look at goals differently. And I'm constantly trying to do that. And that's kind of why I'm leaning into this imposter syndrome so much. It's a lot of self-reflection. It's hearing that ugly voice when it's not you. It's that ugly voice saying, hey, JP, you better watch out. Hey, JP. Like, that's why I'm doing this. I didn't want to. I thought of every single thing today to do besides doing a podcast about imposter syndrome. But my wife's like, you got to start somewhere. And so here I am starting. So, and it is a serious issue. So what am I doing right now to kind of that helps me? I have, during the coaching course, and then, throughout this whole process, kind of started reflecting, started thinking, what have I done that kind of helps me kind of tame my imposter syndrome? And I came up with something called the is to I am journey. And that's the imposter syndrome to the I am journey. It really is just kind of reducing, refraining, and reframing your imposter syndrome. And this worked for me the other day. I went downtown, I had an investment. I had a meeting with an investment banking company, and this is not my realm. Okay. Like the investment banking world is not my realm yet. And this was one of the first meetings. Refrained it. I refrained it from talking more negative to me and all that stuff. And I reframed things. I started thinking, okay, well, why do I belong? Why am I here? I'm here for three reasons. Number one, I put myself in a situation through everything I've done in the past to this very moment. Number two, someone else believes in me and they asked me to be here. Or number three, I slipped in luck and I fell in luck. Probably one of the first two. So I started kind of, putting evidence behind me. I went from being scared, intimidated, and full of fear walking into this meeting. And the next thing you know, within 30, 45 seconds, I have a list of 7 different reasons why I shouldn't be there. Not only that, I'm talking to myself. I am ready for this. I'm going to go in there and kick ass. And if I don't, I am ready to learn from this experience. So it went from a completely different feeling from walking in that room, from having my IS journey, my imposter syndrome journey, to feeling very confident and actually enjoying that meeting when I switched it from the I am journey. When I started telling myself who I was, why I was there. And that was success. And again, this is something I have to do. It's very situational. It's something that I have to do, but I've found it to be working. And that's kind of what I'm diving into when I pursue my coaching career. So again, right now, I guess it's still Thanksgiving break, and I am struggling with it's part of the is to I am journey. My imposter syndrome is telling me to fill in every time that I'm not that I have any free time with work, but I am trying to get used to not defaulting to that. I am trying to get used to kind of spending time with my family. I am trying to get used to being present with those that matter to me. So that's kind of that's this. Now, honestly, I'm gonna be doing more podcasts and subjects like this, whether it's imposter syndrome, whether it's things that I find interesting when it comes to kind of mindset as a business owner or networking or whatever that looks like, marketing. But again, I'm about to kind of launch my IS to I am journey, and I'm excited about that. However, in order for me to do that, I need to share with you that I'm not only an imposter syndrome coach, but I'm an imposter syndrome conqueror and I'm an imposter syndrome struggler. I am not my Colin Robinson. So I want to thank everyone out there for tuning in to Energy Crew Podcast. And we hope you have a great day. And again, actually, if you are facing an imposter syndrome, try to just name your imposter syndrome. Try to think of what that thing looks like. And kind of with it Danny DeVito and the Penguin, is it Colin Robinson? And I always try to think of something like that. Make it look ridiculous because it is ridiculous. It's not you. And that's the best part. So I'm all about helping people turn their imposter syndrome into a superpower. Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Energy Crew podcast, brought to you by Exec Crew. If you're interested in joining a inner circle, if you're an executive founder who want to get connected with other executive founders, in an inner circle knowledge sharing community where we're focused on genuine connections, and also anyone can be a teacher, anyone can be a student. Check out connectioncrew.com under Exec Crew. And again, if you're interested in sponsoring, we are opening up Energy Crew sponsorship as well. So I want to thank everyone out there for tuning in. And again, you are not your imposter syndrome. Say I am, and give some powerful sentence right behind that. I am ready. I am a badass. I am ready for today. All right. And I am subscribed, and I am giving this 5 stars on every single outlet you can. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.